let's talk more about measurement. I'd love to introduce Shasnika DeMel from also the InfoTrust team. She's a lead advanced analytics solutions and data scientist at InfoTrust, and she's going to talk about attribution. So, Shas?
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so we've kind of touched on attribution a little bit here and there, especially in Adam and Harry's previous presentation as well. In my presentation, I'm going to dive into it a little bit more deeper and be more focused on digital marketing attribution. So overall, my goal today is, making sure this works. My goal today is to give you a high-level overview of some of the attribution challenges. We've kind of covered this already with some of the privacy challenges that we're facing in this digital landscape, as well as our recommended approach to solve for this challenge by utilizing Vertex AI, which, as Courtney mentioned, is really powerful tool for building models as well as deploying it and building it at scale. And also, I'll be covering our roadmap on which to really just build this attribution model, deploy it, so that you can you can utilize the insights that you gain from that as soon as possible for your marketing needs. So, a little bit about attribution, which you're all pretty much aware of, and that has already been covered, is that it's really important. It's an important measurement tool for marketers in general. We understand how complex the customer journey has become and how complex it is to grow your online presence. And as you can see, this is a very simple funnel, but there's so many things that go into it from a digital marketer's point of view, because there are a number of channels, a number of campaigns, and within those campaigns, there are a number of tactics that you're utilizing to be able to reach the customer at the right stage to make sure that they're making informed decisions to actually convert on your site. Whether it's to make a product purchase, a service, or simply to call a customer representative to understand more about your business. So understanding this, we also know that as a digital marketer, there's a lot of challenges you're facing when it comes to attribution in itself. Here are 3 of the challenges that we've kind of narrowed it down to. So we're aware that according to Gartner, 71% of CMOs believe that they lack sufficient budget to fully execute their strategy. What this means is that with limited budgets, digital marketers have to maximize on results. Now, 70% of marketers feel overwhelmed by evolving privacy rules and its implications on marketing attributions. So what this means is that due to the evolving privacy rules and regulations that they have to continuously keep up with, that means you have less data signals, essentially less data to work with. And then 62% of marketers find that it's challenging to attribute marketing performance to specific channels. And as I mentioned, it's complex, the whole customer journey. And then there are different platforms, there are different methods. So it's really hard to kind of figure out where you should focus and what to narrow down on. So in order to solve for these challenges, you're probably thinking, okay, which way do I go? Now we have already talked about one way. I'm here to talk about another approach as well, which is very focused on digital marketing. But before I do that, let me just kind of give you an overview of some of the key attribution methods that have been previously used and some that are also still currently being used. And we kind of rule out what's just not useful anymore. So the first being single touch attribution. We're all kind of aware of this. This is a very oversimplified way of looking at the customer journey and really giving credit to one type of interaction, whether it's the first or the last interaction. And what this doesn't do is it doesn't capture all the nuances, all the touch points in between. Then we have the multi-touch attribution. This doesn't fully capture all the, or I wouldn't say fully capture, but it doesn't truly give weight effectively to all the touch points in between because it's rule-based. And that's what these two methods, if you will, are essentially doing. It's rule-based, it's predefined, and so essentially it's not fully taking into account some of the nuances in terms of the customer interactions amongst all these tactics and campaigns that they're interacting with when they're being advertised to. So the way to go, and you've probably already heard of this, is data-driven attribution. And within data-driven attribution, there's mixed media modeling and regression-based attribution. And I'm here to talk more about regression-based attribution. So our approach to regression-based attribution is that it's really useful specifically for digital marketers because it's a scalable solution, it's privacy safe, so it really helps solve for some of the challenges that I had highlighted earlier. And it's a solution specifically to digital attribution and optimization. Now, as you can see over here, in like the spectrum of attribution, you have multi-touch attribution, which is great, but it's also cookie-based. And we all know that, due to privacy changes in regulations, this is really not a durable solution. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have media mix modeling, which is also great because it takes into account both offline and online media. However, it looks at everything at a macro level. But as a digital marketer, when you're spending so much time, effort, and money on like tactic-specific campaigns, the sweet spot here for you would be regression-based attribution. Because regression-based attribution can give you granular level of insights and reporting into your marketing tactics, which one's working in terms of having the most impact on driving conversions to your site. Regression-based attribution helps answer some of these key questions that a lot of marketers have, such as, within each channel, what tactics have the greatest impact on conversions? What mix of channels and sub-channels will generate better returns? And if I have extra budget, which channels and sub-channels should I invest in? Which should I not invest in? Those are powerful questions to be able to answer to. And we all have bosses that we need to answer to be able to say, hey, if you're giving me this marketing budget, you're going to be asking me, how am I maximizing this? Being able to answer this and having a tool to be able to answer this, I think is really powerful. So let me kind of break down on, or provide an example on how this can actually look like. So let's say, if you have an extra 100,000 budget available at the end of the quarter and you want to know where to spend it, what would that look like using regression-based attribution? Well, what we've done is, along with using this attribution tool, we'll build something else called a scenario planner. And this helps you basically take in all that historical data, use the attribution tool, and be able to guide you and tell you where you need to spend it and how much off your budget you need to spend on each of those tactics. So for example, in here, let's say you understand where you are today, right? You have these 3 different tactics, you know your spend and your average conversion value. What RBA, or regression-based attribution, does is it helps you understand historically where the attributed conversions are and the cost per conversion. Then taking that further, it gives you a recommendation of taking that budget that you have and telling you exactly where to allocate it, or what percentage of that budget you need to allocate it. And then it takes a step further and uses a predictive model to be able to tell you what the impact would be. And in this case, you're able to understand the ROI of the incremental spend as well. So this is what it means to be using a regression-based attribution model, and this is what it also means to be making data-driven decisions as well. Okay, so I talked about a recommended approach at a high level and why it's important. So let me kind of get down to how we usually end up building this using Vertex AI. So first, we make sure that all this data is captured within your marketing data warehouse. And when we're thinking about marketing data warehouse within the Google Cloud Platform, it's BigQuery. So we'll be utilizing BigQuery to capture all that marketing data within GMP, as well as from other platforms as well through API integrations or other types of integrations that makes it easier to digest in the data automatically. And from there, we use Vertex AI that is enabling us to build a model that's trained on your data. So I'll take this a step further by just giving you a high-level overview of how Vertex AI actually helps us in this case, is that it helps us with data ingestion. Like I mentioned, it helps us automate the process. You don't need a lot of engineering work to go with it, which is great, saves time. It streamlines the attribution modeling process because once we've finalized on a model, it's very much easier to just make sure that's automated. It's just running on autopilot and you're getting those insights that you need. It's integrated to the scenario planning tool. So similar to what I had shown in an example earlier, you're able to say, hey, ask it questions like, hey, I have this budget. Can you tell me where I need to allocate it during this period of time? And then you're able to do so and understand what the projected impact would be. And its scalability to handle large data sets means that as the data that you're capturing keeps growing, that's not going to be a problem for you. It's actually going to be more powerful for you to be able to feed into the model. And then this is just a high-level overview of the architecture in itself. So you have your marketing data that I just mentioned that is going to be captured and then it's going to be ingested into your marketing data warehouse, which is BigQuery. Now, if you have other data sources, there's, like I mentioned, other ways to integrate that data or even to be able to store it within your cloud storage. And then from there, the magic really happens within the modeling and analysis phase because that's where it's able to train on your data. It's able to capture all those data signals. It's able to use the regression-based attribution techniques and statistical modeling to be able to give you the insights that you need based on your historic data and tell you, hey, this is what's going to happen next, which is all going to be done within the Colab notebook. And that's where the scenario planner actually sits, where you can start asking questions, so you can start doing that testing. We talked about incrementality testing earlier a number of times, and having the experimentation mindset is really helpful, and essentially that's what this is going to be enabling you to do. And then taking all that information, then you're able to activate on those insights within your marketing platforms, your advertising platforms. And I'll end it off over here. So this is the roadmap that I had mentioned as one of my goals to share with you. We had previously shared that building the foundation is really key. And one of the things that we do with all of our clients is that we really work closely with them to build that foundation. We make sure that everything you need to have to build this model is available. We also incorporate business logic. Sometimes there are certain data points that are not captured specifically within your marketing data. So we make sure that's captured and that there is an automated way to capture that. So it enhances, informs the model as it's training on this information. And then we'll also do a lot of analysis. Part of that analysis is looking into your business logic, making sure that the value you want out of this is actually being captured here. And also we highlight whether there are any gaps, any spikes in your data that could potentially create some issues as well. So the foundational piece is really, really important as we're building this. And that's where we really spend a lot of time in, because that piece is important as we're going to the modeling piece, where we identify a model, which means that we'll build a number of models to make sure that we are choosing the best one here based on your business objectives. and then utilize that to develop the scenario planning tool so you can start figuring out like where you need to optimize your budget depending on what's being shared, and then deliver the modeling and attribution insights. And from there, we move to the strategic action phase. So this is where, depending on who needs to be involved from the teams, we make sure that they have an awareness and understanding what's being built here. Because transparency is really key, and it's a two-way process. What goes into the model in terms of business logic needs to be shared with from the digital marketers to the people who are actually building this. That's a really important piece of information. And then the the experimentation mindset is also key over here, because great, so you have all this information, you have these insights. If it just sits there, does nothing really, there's really no value to show here. And that's why it's important to test it out as soon as possible to make sure that you are able to see that value as quickly as possible. And then ongoing model updates. Because everything is built within GCP, within Vertex AI, the process is automated. That means your model gets updated with all the new data. It can be easily refreshed and refreshed at a rate depending on your business cycle, your sales cycle as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into it to make sure that it's constantly refreshed with the latest data, it's trained with the most recent data, and it's able to give you that predictive information you need to start basically making sure that you're able to make data-driven decisions on your marketing spend. And that's it from me. I hope you guys enjoyed that session. Thank you.